Group B12's Integrative Case Study Group Project, presented by Oliver, Cambry, Ollie, Isabel, Sava, and Robert.
Okay, so to start off with the comparative analysis section, looking first at sector context, the UK higher education sector is facing mounting challenges as domestic tuition fees have been frozen since 2012, while costs continue to still rise. So as a result of this, universities have become increasingly reliant on international students, a strategy that's now under pressure due to Brexit and global instability, as said in the Times. Now looking at St. Andrews' strategic position in the university global context. In this environment, the University of St. Andrews has positioned itself as a distinctive elite institution. Ranked number 1 in the UK in previous years by both The Guardian and The Times, it also leads in student satisfaction, according to national student surveys done by The Guardian. Its appeal is especially amongst US students drawn by the liberal arts style education and global reputation. However, despite its prestige, St. Andrews operates on a smaller scale than many of its research-intensive peers like Oxford, UCL, or Edinburgh, or basically any of the other Russell Group universities. This creates limitations and inhibits its research capacity, postgraduate volume, and industry partnerships. And as you can see on this slide, it is a comparison between strengths and weaknesses between St. Andrews and its competitors. Sector-wide, universities are accelerating digital learning, climate action, and new funding models. Edinburgh, for example, is embedding sustainability across operations, while Imperial is investing in AI-focused innovation hubs. St. Andrews, because of this, is at a risk of falling behind unless it follows suit. In summary, St. Andrews is well positioned in terms of brand and student experience, but to remain competitive, it must enhance its sustainability commitments and invest in digital infrastructure, along with diversifying its revenue streams beyond tuition.
Financial position analysis. So in the 2023-24 financial year, it presented challenging environments due to rising costs of goods and services, political instability, and postgraduate recruitment struggles. As a result, the uni was forced to focus on preserving their cash reserves, carefully prioritising capital investments. So their total income was 321.6 million, which is up 0.3% compared to the previous year. However, when looking at the financial statement, one key standout figure was the underlying operating deficit. This was at 13 million compared to 5.5 million in 2022-23. And primarily the cause of this was the shortfall in tuition income of 6.9 million, driven by lower student postgrad numbers, staff vacancies, and non-recurring investment into the new financial system. Initially, when we move to expenditure, when we analyse it, we see a decrease of 45.2 million, which is 15% less than 2022-23. But further analysis shows that due to the changes in the pension scheme this year, our underlying expenditure actually increased by 14.1 million, which is quite substantial. There are a few main reasons that contribute to this. We can see a 8.6 million increase in staffing costs, 5.5 in operating expenses due to the high cost environment as mentioned earlier, and a 2.7 million depreciation in assets. After analysing the financial statement, we can come up with 2 recommendations that the university may wish to implement to help solve some of these issues highlighted. So firstly, the first recommendation would be increasing investment into the postgraduate education. As we saw in the underlying operating deficit, there was a 6.9 million shortfall of tuition income, mainly due to the lack of postgraduate numbers. So the university should aim to look at potential ways to create more accessible postgraduate opportunities. One way of doing this can be to maintain or increase their investment into postgraduate housing and the accessibility of it. So we underwent an initial 12 million investment into the Grange housing development, which provided new energy efficient homes for postgrads, and is a great start to attract more students to the university, especially living in such a small town and with accommodation prices being high. Any way the university can look at making it more affordable and more attractive for postgrads can really help boost the tuition income and the accessibility for postgraduates to study at St. Andrews. We hope this must be maintained throughout the course of the future to keep incentives for students to enrol in postgraduate education at St. Andrews. But equally, the further investment can also further improve the accessibility available. addition, the second recommendation can be around reducing staffing costs. So after we look at the expenditure report, we can see last year there was an 8.6 million increase in staffing costs. This led to, out of total expenditure, staffing costs are actually 68.17% of all expenditure, which is very high. It was 55.6% last year. But when we look at the competitors such as Oxford and Cambridge, in this year, we can see that their staffing costs sit at below 50%, both 46.1 and 45% respectively. So this clearly demonstrates an opportunity for St Andrews to streamline their staffing costs and explore ways to increase efficiency and reduce the high expenses related to staff. One key way we thought they could do this by developing more online courses and expanding their postgrad taught courses. The university can attract a wider, broader market of students without having to hire more staff. In fact, they could reduce staffing numbers, especially with the postgraduate taught courses. This in turn will help address the 8.6 million increase in staffing costs over the past year, and hopefully, once the resources are created, this will be a long-term solution to keep staffing costs as low as possible.
Through our environmental analysis, we determined that one of the most pressing political challenges currently facing the University of St Andrews stems from changes in UK government policy following Brexit. Postgraduate visa regulations have tightened significantly, making it more difficult for international students, particularly those with dependents, to study in the UK. This shift has directly contributed to a decline in overseas postgraduate enrollment, which played a role in the multi-million-pound tuition shortfall reported in the last academic year. Additionally, the university has lost access to key EU funding streams, such as Erasmus and portions of Horizon Europe programs. These sources previously supported both mobility and collaborative research, which are critical areas for a globally connected institution like St Andrews. Recent UK government rhetoric around higher education funding suggests a move towards reduced tuition fees and potential defunding of certain disciplines such as the arts and humanities. These cuts would disproportionately affect this university, which prides itself on a broad-based liberal arts-style education, and is to increase dual enrollment and co-degree opportunities at the postgraduate level by forming long-term partnerships with international institutions, particularly those in North America, Asia, and the EU. This approach would not only broaden our recruitment reach, but would allow postgraduate students to study across two institutions, therefore reducing visa-related obstacles and creating a more attractive, globally relevant academic experience. Most importantly, it offers a financially sustainable way to recapture lost international tuition income while maintaining the academic integrity and global appeal that is so central to St Andrews as an educational institution.
2025 Scottish Government budget, they implemented a reduction in the amount of funding that was available for public universities. So this has meant that universities have had to operate on tighter budget constraints, leading to them being able to spend less for apartments and student accommodation. So apart from the university that's provided by the accommodation that's provided by the university, students may find it difficult to find places to live.
Solution or suggestion that would help aid the cost of living crisis and housing crisis in St Andrews that not only puts financial and emotional strain on current students, but also can discourage students from attending St Andrews, is to partner with rideshare companies like Lime, Forest, or Bolt to construct e-scooter or e-bike stations around St Andrews or provide freestanding scooters or bikes that operate on a rental program. This addition would make accessing quicker, sustainable transportation a lot easier and a lot less financially taxing for students who are already under financial strain due to high rent prices. And the availability and accessibility of these methods of transportation for both students, faculty, and community members in St Andrews would make living further out of town much less of a burden and would provide an option for accessible, efficient, and sustainable methods of commuting in and out of town.
The university is run by three main bodies: the University Court, the University Senate, and the General Council. The University Court meets on a quarterly basis, and the University Senate meets 4 times a year. The key officials of the university are the Principal and Vice Chancellor, Professor Dame Sally Mapstone. The Principal and Vice Chancellor is the Chief Executive Officer of the university. It has been that way since the mid-1800s, and it's been customary that one person holds 2 titles. The post of Principal representing the executive function, and the post of Vice Chancellor the ceremonial function. The Chancellor, the RT on Lord Campbell of Pittenweem. The office of the Chancellor has existed since the foundation of the university, although there's no comprehensive definition of the powers of the modern Chancellor. The most authoritative definition comes from the report made by the University of Commissioners of 1826, which states, As the head of the university, he is consulted on all public matters relative to his welfare and is also a conservator of his privileges. The power of conferring degrees is vested in him. This he may exercise either personally when present or by statute when absent, with the advice of the doctors and masters of the university. Over that is the rector, Stella Maris. The rector supports the student body at local and national levels. They also preside at meetings of the university court. A senior lay member has a key role in the governance of the university. The roles include they have the responsibility to ensure the court fulfill an objective in a proper and effective manner. University chairs.